back.
Yeah, mic check, mic check, mic check. Is this thing on, man? What is going on? We are back. We are officially live. Welcome to Kicking the Real Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Diosa. If you're a first time listener, thank you for being here. And as always, if you're a multiple time listener, thank you for being here. Off rip, this camera looks a little crazy right now. I don't know why, but I told you on the last episode, I was going on a little bit of a break. And when I say life be life, and I actually do mean it, so I want to explain myself before you guys are like, why does this dude just go and disappear for 2 months or whatever and doesn't record? But it was a good reason. I had a nice vacation. I was out in Europe, chilling, friends, meeting new people, got to see some cool soccer stadiums in Portugal. I went to Parc des Princes in Paris right after, PSG wins the Champions League. So got to see a lot of cool things over there, Stade de France, music festival with my friends in Portugal. I was in Spain. I was in all over the place. And then I came back to LA for, I don't know, maybe 3-4 days max. And then I was out in Austin for a week, really killing three birds with one stone, if we could say it that way. Obviously, MLS All-Star festivities were in Austin, which was amazing. All-Star is always a lot of fun. Just get to see so many people, all the writers, all the media, and then all the friends that I have that work either for teams or for the league office. Just a blast to be around. Always a lot of fun to see players enjoying that. And just Austin's a great city. Got to go chill with my cousin who lives in Austin. Shout out to my cousin Derek. Always a good time to see him. I haven't seen him in a minute. That was a bit of a different Austin experience for us this time around, which just means we're getting older and more mature, which is great. But shout out to Austin. Shout out to Derek. And shout out to Austin. And then I got to chill with two of my closest friends, my brothers, on that same weekend in Austin. So really, I just was out in Austin for the week. It was a lot of fun. And then I got back to LA, and then I moved to a new apartment, which if you're watching on YouTube is why there's no scarves behind me. There's no setup because I'm still unpacking. I had to find the blank wall in my apartment to record this. But you know what? I'm back because I missed y'all so much. So that was my long-winded story of telling you why I was gone for 2 months or so. But like I said, life do be lifing. But it is a perfect time to be back because in this chaotic mess of an MLS schedule, we finally have a somewhat normal week on tap where there's nothing going on this week besides league games on Saturday on the weekend. So I had to bring a friend back with me. And this guy has the distinction of being the first and only repeat guest on Kicking the Real so far. If you are a supporter of the show, you will recognize him because he was on episode number 11. And he is back with me to talk some MLS, some Leagues Cup. Without further ado, my brother, Justin Ruderman, welcome back, man. How you feeling?
Good, man. Wow, I am honored. I didn't know I was the first two-time guest.
Oh, man.
It is great to be back. It's great to have you back in LA. And yeah, great to be back to some MLS action after a hectic Leagues Cup. But it's been, a lot of fun, a good season, a good Leagues Cup so far. And yeah, get into it, man. It's good to be back on Kicking the Real.
Yes, sir. Thanks for coming through to kick with me as always. There's just so much going on in MLS, and it always seems that way, which is it's good and bad because sometimes you miss a moment and then it feels like 1,000 things have happened, and then sometimes you're like, okay, you have time to actually digest what is going on. So we're gonna get into a lot this episode because, like we mentioned, Leagues Cup has been happening. Justin has been all over at the stadiums here in Los Angeles, covering, writing. If you have consumed any Leagues Cup content, you probably read some of his work on Leagues Cup, and then also stuff on MLS soccer. So we're going to start with MLS because, like I mentioned, this summer has been crazy, and then we'll pivot over to Leagues Cup. But I want to start at MLS because there's some big names that came to the league, and aside from the excitement of having the team down in Miami that has Lionel Messi and a bunch of his friends on it, I think there's so much of a trend that you can see in MLS over the past few years where they're bringing in these players that really resonate. Whether or not you want to talk about they're at the latter end of their career or whatever moment they're in, that's fine. You could argue that all you want. But the fact that LAFC was able to land Sonny or Son, however you want to call him, Son Heung-Min, the fact that the Vancouver Whitecaps were able to land Thomas Müller, which that is the one that's getting me personally. The fact that Rodrigo DePaul was able to join the group in Miami, despite them already having Messi's friends and sidekicks there, it's just such a whirlwind of these players coming to MLS. So I want to ask you, because you were around, you were at the press conference when Son got introduced here in LA. What are your thoughts specifically on him arriving to LAFC? And then we'll get on to the other two that I mentioned.
Yeah, It's I was almost gonna make an entire video about this. So it's great. I can address it here because I put out a tweet when the news came out. And I said, quote, aside from Carlos Vela, this is the biggest signing in LAFC history. Heck, there's an argument it's bigger than Carlos Vela, unquote. And I got all the European fanboys and the Sunny fanboys in my comments talking about who is Carlos Vela. And I get it. I get it, right? Because from an international perspective, from a league perspective, Heung-Min is a top 10 signing in MLS history in my eyes. There's a good argument to be made if we're using the same wording that he is in the top 5 in MLS history. But I would say when we're talking about LAFC specifically, Carlos Vela is still the biggest signing in club history because of what he meant to the club. If you want to put it in a single sentence, there is no Son Heung-min at LAFC without Carlos Vela at LAFC. But like I said, Son Heung-min is still a top 10 signing in MLS history. If you look at it from a league and an international perspective, he is much bigger than Carlos Vela ever was. He is bringing not only a Premier League fan base, a Tottenham fan base, and not only a massive Korean fan base, but really an Asian fan base. I mean, he's one of the greatest Asian footballers ever, and he has an incredible following. Um, he's still, in my opinion, great on the pitch. People say at 33, he's slowed down a little bit. He doesn't have quite the same stats that he used to in the Premier League. You know what? I would say Tottenham were pretty bad last year, and I would say that his stats are still pretty good. And he went and won a trophy. And who knows? Maybe that same coach could be coming to LAFC in the future. But I just think it's a fantastic signing. I don't think he's lost too much of a step, and I think that he showed it in his debut that he is ready to go. His fitness obviously isn't there; he's in preseason, but he was already showing the leadership with his teammates on the sidelines, hyping everybody up. He is a captain without even putting the armband on him, and I think that there's just there's no negative about that I could possibly see in this signing. I mean, LAFC always talks about, and you know this as talking to John Thorrington all the time, that he will say it's always about people first and player second, right? That's what, and I think that Son, more than any player next to maybe Giorgio Chiellini in LAFC history, embodies that statement where it's like, he's obviously a world-class player. He's also a world-class human being. And when you put those two together, it's incredible. I think that you look at him next to Denny Bouanga. He's playing, Son was at the 9 in the first game, but you could see that they're able to switch. It's a fluid front three, always has been for Steve Cherundolo. So I think that it's perfect. I think you can make a very good argument. I think probably they're the best, wingers pairing in MLS, potentially the two best wingers in MLS on the same team. We're not talking about Lionel Messi as a winger, obviously, but Anders Dreyer's had a great season. It's like what San Diego have with Lozano and Dreyer, but like upgraded, right? And LAFC still have a DP spot open, which JT said, maybe they'll fill. So incredible move. That is my spiel on Heung-Min Son.
Yeah, I think there's so many different intangibles to unpack when it comes to that move. And people that know the fabric of LA and how important it is for the Korean fans, the Korean demographic here in LA, it's one of those players that just literally moves emotions that people feel a certain way about. And I think if you're talking about superstars that are not necessarily polarizing, where it's like the majority of people just like the dude because he seems like a likable character, right? Like it's not like he's coming in where it's like, oh well, there's a big group of fans that dislike Son. It's like he has never really given people a reason to be on that side. So in terms of the personality, in terms of obviously the culture that he's bringing in the Korean fan base that's already here, but the people that are going to follow him, follow LAFC, and in turn follow the league because of that, it's just massive in terms of growth. On top of the fact that, like you mentioned, you're getting a player that is still very efficient on the field. You could see just in that sprint that he had to win the penalty where his pace showed. And like you mentioned, he's in preseason form. He's not necessarily up to speed yet per se, but I don't think it's going to take long for him to get there because he has that hunger to play, right? And it's also a thing to talk about that he's coming in where there's only a few more games left in the regular season. Granted, it's over a little bit amount of time, right? But it's crunch time for LAFC where we know Steve Cherundolo's leaving. So it's like they're always all in, but now they're definitely all in and needing this to kind of boost them and get back to that standing that, hey, maybe they could win MLS Cup this year because that's all they have left to play for. So I think it's such a great signing for LAFC. I mean, they've continuously done that. You have to give them credit. I've always said this throughout all of the, I guess, the criticisms that JT, the front office, and Steve Trundle have had. They've always swung high and have landed some big players, and that's, I guess, the luxury you have of being a team in Los Angeles. But like you mentioned, it's the luxury of having Carlos Vela come here and set that bar so high from the beginning, and on top of that, have one of the best seasons MLS has ever seen, and then that continuing to bloom with different players like Gareth Bale and Olivier Giroud, who, it's so funny talking about Giroud. He scored already in France in a preseason game or two, and it's like now there's this whole conversation. It's like, man, like we know exactly what the deal was when he was here. Like we know he's still a goal scorer, but it's interesting to evaluate how Son is going to fit in terms of how Giroud fit. But either way, I think it's such a great signing for LAFC. Whether or not it ends up pushing them to MLS Cup will be a big deal. But the one thing I'm really interested about is like when somebody like that comes over, like he's like, okay, is he aware that next season's coach is like unidentified? It's unknown. Like, is he per se somebody that's having a say in that conversation? Like, there's so much swirling around. I don't want to say uncertainty, but just about what the future looks like for LAFC after this year is over. But for the short term, as I've mentioned, it's full throttle, and having somebody like Son there is huge. And just seeing, like, I tweeted this out, and I know you were tweeting quotes from the post game presser too. Like, the dude did all these interviews when he got introduced in LA. He then flies to Bridgeview, to Chicago. He plays a few minutes in that game. He does a post game interview on Apple TV. He does post game to the media in person and on Zoom. Like, it's he gets it. He understands. Like, everything that he said, it made it understand. Like, I'm here to make this league big. He said all the right things. You could tell by his personality, and I just think that the term ambassador was thrown out. He's going to be somebody that does indeed push the league forward. But in terms of, that's the overarching, right? In terms of the actual soccer itself, do you think that under Steve Trundle and what we've known this team to be, do you think that move puts them back in that echelon of MLS Cup contenders?
Yeah, I do. And I think a big reason is that they're out of the West, right? I think the West is a lot weaker this season. And I think it's the same that it is most years. It's the jersey that you're wearing in LAFC, and it's those two teams, that are probably going to end up in the Western Conference final or, meeting somewhere in those playoffs. And it's one of those teams that's going to be in the final against, whoever comes out of that packed East. And that's kind of how I see it. Heung-Min only solidifies that for me, especially LAFC could still make more moves. It's kind of that thing where LAFC has that better top end talent in Bouanga and Son. Seattle is a more complete team. In a one-off playoff game, maybe you go with the top end talent, especially if they add a little bit more. But if they don't perform in that one game, Seattle probably takes it. So it to me, that's how I view the West, and I view those two teams. And they're definitely a contender, especially when you put those top end talents. They basically need to win, two big games, in my opinion, a Western Conference final and an MLS Cup. And Son Heung-Min could do that on his own. Denny Bouanga could do that on his own. Put them together, you never know.
Yeah, the one thing we do know about LAFC has been true from the inception is if they get these games at home at BMO Stadium, that's a big benefit for them. So they'll have to push for standing and seeding in these last few regular season games. But like I mentioned, it's all they have to worry about right now. So they do have that clear focus of, we don't have any other distractions. And I said this the other day, I think it was last night, or 2 days ago. Like, how cool must it be for Nathan Ordaz, who went from being an LAFC ball boy to playing alongside Olivier Giroud and Son? Like, there was one play in the game that he passed the ball, and I just saw like Son turns him and give him like a thumbs up, and I'm like, man, this must feel so cool for like a young kid like Nathan Ordaz to just be going through. And you could tell he's just improving so much over the season in front of everybody's eyes, which is amazing.
Yeah, he played the ball for the penalty as well. That long, ball in behind for Son. It's a great opportunity for him. And I think you brought up a great point with the coach as well. I'm an advocate. I want, Ange. I think that would be really, really great. But it's an interesting point that you bring up, because at that press conference, the one thing I did notice was Steve Cherundolo was not on that panel.
Right.
And I asked Dorrington about that. He brushed it off afterwards. Fair enough. But I thought that was notable because he normally is there. But yeah, he's on his way out. We all know that anyway. So it's about who's coming in, and it is an interesting scenario for Son to come into a team where it's like you don't know who the next coach is going to be, and it's a question to me: does he have a say in that?
Yeah, because you would think, right, you have a team that has such a defined style, and that's not something that they necessarily want to change. But I'll flip it shortly to what happened in Philadelphia this season, and we'll talk about the Union a little later. But like Philly had always had a defined style under Jim Curtin. Bradley Carnell comes in and is like, we're playing the way I want to play, and look where they are right now. So it's very interesting to see what the future of LAFC holds. But if you're in LA, if you're enjoying and appreciating the fact that Son is here, continue to do so. His first home game will be against San Diego at the end of the month, which is just like the most perfect stage for him to have his first home game. I'm sure the stadium is going to be incredible. And to the larger picture, it's just so good for MLS and all of the critics online and everything. Like to see the league grow so fast and the 30 years it's been around is incredible. And I know because my mentions are already getting full with a lot of Koreans retweeting and all that stuff. So I already know they're going crazy on your end too. So salute to the people that are new to MLS. Welcome, enjoy, appreciate it. Speaking of newcomers, we have another legend who landed in MLS and Thomas Müller. And like I said earlier, this is the one that's getting me because it's just somebody that has legitimately been at the top for I don't know how many years of watching soccer and a World Cup winner and doing it in the Bundesliga and just being such a face and such a memorable part of a lot of those German national team runs and then just a lot of those runs at Bayern and being a player of his caliber. Granted, he's older now. He's coming to a Vancouver team, surprisingly, has had an amazing season and has been really shocking everybody, but also a team that like maybe they didn't necessarily need him. Not to say that you will never take a chance on getting a player of that caliber. So I'm very interested to see how Jesper Sorensen integrates him. But listen, man, we said this when Luis Suarez came. Like, if you get a proven goal a proven goal scorer, a striker that has done it all around the world, even if Suarez looked like he was old and couldn't walk, and he still started banging in goals, I have no doubt in my mind that Müller will be able to do the same in Vancouver. So, what are your thoughts on him joining the Whitecaps?
Yeah, I love it. What I love most is that Vancouver told Jesper Sorensen at the beginning of the year, if you build a team that is competitive, we're going to back you and we're going to go for it this year. And he did that, and they kept their word. They went out and they said, whoever wants it, we're going to get Thomas Müller. Multiple teams wanted to get this deal done. Vancouver was the one who put up the money and got the deal over the line. So I think it's great. I think you're right that it's he's the oldest, right? It's the more classic retirement league signing of the three. The other two are more in closer to their prime, back into their prime. But like you say, I think it's a really good signing. I think it'll work really well because it's not like he's coming into a team where he's going to have to do a lot of work on the ball or off the ball. He's going to be able to kind of chill up top, use his class and let the rest of the team do the ball progression, do the hard work off the ball, which Vancouver does very well. They don't need help in that department, and they can provide the ball to him and let him do his magic. I think that's the best kind of situation for him. And I think it's a really good fit. I think if you saw him on other teams, it might not be as successful as I think it will be in Vancouver.
So what you're telling me is he's going to be exactly what Olivier Giroud should have been in a system that suits him, right?
Right. No, exactly. I mean, going back to Twitter not communicating well enough, I called Olivier Giroud the biggest flop in LAFC history, and I stand by it. But it's not necessarily his fault. It's because the system wasn't built for him. They didn't play crosses to him. It's not that they can't do it. We saw Denny Bouanga serve it up to Sam Surridge in the All-Star game, but it's that's not the way that LAFC plays. That's not the way that Steve Cherundolo plays. And so it didn't work out. And as you say, he scored 4 goals in preseason already in France. So
salute to Olivier Giroud, man. Great guy. I love being able to talk to him the few times that I did. He celebrated the U.S. Open Cup like it was a World Cup. So I'll always appreciate him for that. Him and Hugo Lloris were very excited that day. But I think for Vancouver, it is very interesting because you have somebody like Brian White, who has been one of the biggest standouts this season. You have somebody like Ryan Gauld, who's still working his way back from injury. Like, if they have these attackers going and everybody around them have really, like we talked about, I think this season people have talked about Sebastian Berhalter so much, and it's still not enough because he's just improved vastly. Obviously, Pedro Vite is not there anymore, but there are so many pieces on that Vancouver team who have solidified roles, who have literally improved day and night. Tristan Blackman being one of them defensively, and they just have so much going on, and they're already at a position that puts them in great standing going into the playoffs. So if they could just maintain that, getting Müller in there, man, that's a team that, like, hey, bro, like, you run into a team like that in the playoffs, and good luck, right? Because you don't know at any given moment you have a person who has literally scored goals for a living year over year, who has won a World Cup, who has done so much in an illustrious career that you just never know any given moment he might be able to change a game on you, and then there goes your season. So I'm very excited for that, mostly because I'm just invested in what the Whitecaps have done this year, and Jesper Sorensen has been so great. And Vancouver is a great place, a city that I just visited for the first time this year, and I enjoyed it vastly as well. So shout out to the Whitecaps. Speaking of former World Cup winners and people coming to MLS, we have Rodrigo DePaul going, or not going, he is now in South Florida. Joined Inter Miami, Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez, Jordi Alba, Sergio Busquets, the people, the friends, the Messi stimulus package, if you may, right? And it's one of those things where it's like, you talk about signings making so much sense. This one, for me, makes a lot of sense for Miami in terms of the makeup of the group, in terms of how much he means to Lionel Messi as a player, as a teammate, as a friend. And we've seen it already through Leagues Cup, and him just being able to come in and play 90 minutes in that first game in the South Florida weather, to me, is incredible. Because I'm like, anybody that's not used to that weather, it takes them a while, and he just kept going, and is why they call him Motorcito. Like, he's just nonstop. A player that brings, I think, a different level of, let's say, energy to the team, where, you know, you have these players like Messi, Suarez, Busquets, Jordi Alba, who are respected on a certain type of level, but none of those dudes, maybe besides Suarez, bring that tenacity that Rodrigo DePaul brings, right? And Suarez does it more, to me, he's always complaining about something edge. Rodrigo DePaul does it to me as like, this is the way I play, this is the way I am. You're going to learn to respect it. And in turn, you know, I think they were talking about on the broadcast yesterday, like, he's already started to have those conversations in the locker room where it's like he's playing with Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba, but he's showing a different leadership, which is, I think, is important. Now, the locker room in Miami, of course, it doesn't make any sense, because then you have somebody like Ustari in net, who is old and, to me, terrible, and still somehow is a starting goalkeeper there. So there's so much going on in Miami. But Rodrigo DePaul coming to Miami, joining MLS, being alongside Messi, his little bodyguard, whatever you want to call him, to me, it's a great move. What do you think of it?
Yeah, you're right. It's Messi and friends, Ustari included. And that's the way that they've built the team. I don't know that most teams would use a DP spot on a number 8. Of course, he's not a DP yet, so they're not doing that either. But I mean, you know, Busquets is a DP at the 6, and he's falling off, and that's where they're going to use the DP. You know, that's where the DP will come from next season. But yeah, I think you're right. Is in that it may not be like Thomas Müller. It may not be something that works great for other teams to use that type of money on a number 8, but it works well for this Miami team. It's what they've been missing, that tenacity in midfield, that bodyguard of Messi, that, you know, energy constantly, like you're saying. And also, he's already shown, as a lot of people expected, that he's going to contribute more in the attack here in MLS than he would have in La Liga. Obviously so. But he's shown that he's scoring goals. He's providing assists. He's ready to do it. Now, I get, you know, the outside perspective of saying, well, is it really fair that he's signing as a non-DP, signing on a TAM contract? He makes over $7 million a year at Atleti. He makes well under $1 million a year here. I get all of that, but I think that, you know, Heung-Min doesn't go to LAFC if it's not in LA with Koreatown. I think all of these different factors, you know, do play a part. And yeah, it's the buy option is a little bit, you know, iffy. I get that, but that's what Messi gets, right? That's what he gets. And if the player wants it, Atleti will say, okay, we'll take the money on the back end with the transfer fee, no problem. And it works out. So I think it's fantastic move all around. I think that it pushes Miami even further into, you know, the upper echelons that they were already in. So yeah, I mean, with Messi, they're the favorite. Now they become even more so.
Yeah, and to the total opposite of what we discussed with LAFC, besides the fact that Miami's also in win now mode, Miami has 3 trophies at play right now. They're not out of the Supporters Shield run because they have 3 games that they still have to play, and if they win those, they're right back up there. They're a few games away from winning Leagues Cup again if they manage to do that, and MLS Cup is on the table, which is obviously the trophy they want. So we're talking about a team that could go from maybe being disappointed in the CONCACAF tournament earlier this season and the disappointment of losing in MLS playoffs last year to hey, there's 3 trophies on the table. They're probably all well aware of that. And that push is going to be something serious, depending on how fast Lionel Messi could get back on the field. And that's still TBD. But yeah, it's incredible, like I mentioned off the top of the episode, to see these players that are global names come to MLS and just drive the league, right? If anything, right, just grow more interest. And that, to me, people talk about growing the game and things like that. I've always said this, and you know what? This is my perspective. It's not my job to grow the game. If you like the league, you like the league. If you don't, you don't. I don't really care. But it is very cool to see those players come in here, and they already have their fans and their following and their different cultures. And people, me being Colombian, like people that are from Argentina or from South Korea, are going to follow these players. Germans are going to follow these players because these are legends to them and people that they've watched for years. It's the same way I follow Colombians in Europe and all over the place, that players that I have interest in and players that I've watched for a long time. So at the very, very least, it grows interest. And then, everything else for me is a positive there. So we'll see how those 3 particularly turn out for the rest of the season. But now let's get into the real sicko stuff. We're talking about teams in MLS who maybe don't have the star power, but you know what? They should be talked about anyway. And we're going to start with a team I already mentioned, the Philadelphia Union, because Bradley Carnell, if there's a fan club, I am the number 1 fan, and you know this. Just a great guy in general. I've always been a fan of Brad, and I think him getting let go from St. Louis was very premature, very just a mistake. And I tweeted this, like, it might be it's going to go down as one of like an all-time MLS mistake in my eyes, because you could tell his coaching style is very particular. You could tell that when the players are bought in the same way they were in St. Louis in that inaugural season, you get a lot from it. And we're seeing that in Philly now, where they had this Philadelphia Union way of being under Jim Curtin. And the one, I think, thing that scared people a little bit when Jim Curtin was done there is like, what is the next direction they're going to move in? And the fact that they got Bradley Carnell, the fact that Bradley Carnell was able to go in there and really set a standard, and you see the way they're playing is how he wants them to play, direct to the ball. Things that probably stem from the Red Bulls coaching tree and the time that he spent there in New York. But just that goal they scored this past weekend, where it's just like I don't know how many pass touch sequence, and they're just like going through, and just, it's so beautiful, man. It literally is. I don't think anybody's seen the Union play like that. And this is all credit to Bradley Carnell, who right now has my vote for Coach of the Year. I probably am biased, but whatever. But yeah, they're in the lead for Supporters Shield, and I think, we say this about Philly all the time, like they typically get there and then they flame out. But this is a team that listen, man, like you gotta be careful with that, because even if they don't have those big name players like the teams that we've just talked about, they still have very, very good players that get it done in MLS and are doing it at a high level this season.
And that's the most impressive part, is that the biggest name on the team, they traded away mid-season in Daniel Gazdag, and they're still top of the league. And that just speaks to how well of a job, or great of a job, that Bradley Carnell has done. I am also in the Bradley Carnell fan club because I think he's just done so well. And as you said, I was shocked when he was sacked from St. Louis City. I thought that was premature. I thought it was a reaction decision after those playoffs. It wasn't necessary. He did great. And give me a little leeway with this comparison, Mr. New England, because it feels a little bit like Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay and saying, you know what? It's not Bill Belichick, it's me. And Bradley Carnell's doing the same thing with Lutz Vandenstiel, who I thought, had my vote for Executive of the Year in St. Louis's first season. And Bradley Carnell's saying, no, enough focus on Lutz. Come look at me. It's me doing the hard work. It's me getting the job done. First year in St. Louis, first year in Philadelphia. He's doing it again. So it's fantastic. And Ty Baribo is playing great, and so is Quinn Sullivan, and they have some players, but like you say, it's not about big name players. It's about the team coming together and playing the way that Bradley Carnell envisions, and it's got them top of the league.
I'll allow the Patriots reference. I love it. And the fact that they acquired Milan from San Diego, who had a nice little stretch in San Diego, who was playing well, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, now he's going to play in a Philly team who is just already a machine on offense. Here's another player who has shown that he could do it in MLS, even though the sample size was small. So there's definitely pieces there. The fact that the Vasilev is somebody who Carnell had in St. Louis, and is somebody who is starting to come into his own already in Philly. Like, there's so many ties there that just have me feeling very positive about Philly, and we should, because they're in first place for a reason. Now, this might be just a little bit of recency bias, but Orlando City, man, like they just put it on Miami again for the second time this season. And there's always something about Orlando where Oscar Pareja, we know he's a really good coach in MLS, and his team, the one thing I've always said is that they progress every year. They're seeming to progress to a different level, and they're getting there, right? Well, getting there, the next step would be MLS Cup or a trophy, because they were at the edge of that last year, losing in the conference finals to the Red Bull. But just this past little stretch in particular, where you see them excelling in Leagues Cup, where now you're starting to see a Luis Muriel who is just at a different approach, going into this a different way. He's starting to gain, well, not starting to gain. I think he has the confidence now, but he's gaining this confidence of being the goal scorer that people knew he could be, right? I talked to Pareja, let's say maybe a month or two ago when they were here playing the Galaxy in LA, and I asked him, like, what's up with Luis Muriel? Like, what's the difference? And he's like, it's just his approach. Like, he's a lot more bought in. Obviously, from the physical standpoint, you could tell that he's lost some weight, but it's just the approach, the way he's doing it. And you're starting to see, like, he's contributing. Martino Ojeda is contributing. Edward Atuesta is playing the Edward Atuesta role, where it's like, maybe he's not getting any shiner accolades, but you watch him closely and you know exactly what he brings to that Orlando City team. There's so many pieces there that are doing so well. Freeman, who's had a revelation of a past few months going with, the U.S. national team and things like that nature. Orlando City, man, like, does it seem like, hey, now they're back in the top four? Now they could potentially be battling with those top teams where they could say, and look at Columbus, like, we might be able to go head up with you guys and beat you. They're clearly not scared of Miami, right? Maybe they haven't gotten the Miami that they wish they have with Messi playing or missing a lot of games against them, but they're playing what's in front of them. And the fact that they made Miami look so exposed in that Sunday night soccer game, granted without Messi, it just showed a lot of different holes. And it showed, like I mentioned, with Story, bad goalkeeping, bad defending, and just a team that Javier Mascherano said, they just outplayed us from the opening whistle. So what are your thoughts on Orlando City?
Yeah, no, I think you've nailed it, honestly. All season, it's kind of been the top five in the East. Those five best teams were solidified, and can Orlando crack into that group? And I think that after that demolishment of Inter Miami, you have to say they have. And it's just because they have so many players playing well, right? Oscar Pereira deserves credit as well, but it's kind of different in the way that Carnell, because it's just Ojedo's balling at an MVP near clip. Pasalic has come in and been nearly just as good. Muriel, as you say, he has 5 goals in his last 2 games. I mean, I think the challenge he's getting from Ramiro Enrique as well is also pushing him on. As you say, Freeman, Atuesta, there's so many players who are just having great seasons and fit so well into the system there. There's just not much that you can say where it's like, no, they're not a contender. Yes, of course they are. And they've done the double over Inter Miami now this season. They beat big teams. They beat good teams. There's no reason why they can't do it. And yeah, I mean, it's just, like I say, there's so many players playing well on that team, and Martin Ojeda is leading the way.
He's incredible. Like, the DPs are legitimately all producing there in Orlando, and that's typically a very good path to success in MLS. And you know what? The way that we used to a few seasons ago say we need El Tráfico in the playoffs, we need that to boost the rivalry. We need Miami and Orlando in the playoffs this year. Soccer gods, listen, make it happen. We know we don't have a name for the rivalry yet. I don't care. We'll figure that out later. But we need one of those in the playoffs to really set the tone in this rivalry.
I think we are calling it Copa del Sol now. You can decide if you like that yourself, but we might get another Copa del Sol in the Leagues Cup semifinals if those two can make it through. The other point I would make about Orlando City is, since I kind of brush over Oscar Pereira, I think the tactical shift he's made defensively in saying that with Freeman having a breakout season, he's just going to be the one going forward, and we're going to have Bracalo staying on the other side rather than having these like pulley fullbacks that he normally does throughout his career. I think that's made them a little bit more solid defensively, structurally. Maybe they're not, they're similarly conceding, not many goals, same as they always have. But I just think it's structurally built them well and sprung their attack well, so that all of the attackers can have that freedom with that 3 back behind them to be safe. And really, that 3-2 formation that a lot of teams internationally are doing now, it gives them a solid base to allow those free-flowing attackers who have all that talent to just put it on display.
100%. It's a great shout. And that's it. Literally what has changed, I think, the chip in the team, because the mentality has been the same. The approach has been the same. And the players, as you mentioned, have been the same. It's just they're all producing at a high level, and changing that has produced tremendously for that team, which is great to see. And I'm biased because he's Colombian. There's a lot of Colombians on that team. So if I'm rooting for somebody, it's Orlando City. I said it. Sue me. Let's go back over to the West and mention another team who deserves for sure some shine here. And the San Diego FC, man, like there's always something about expansion that is unknown, right? And I think coming into it, people say, yeah, this team might be okay. Like they could be, they could not be. Who knows? Either way, we might be right, we might be wrong. It doesn't matter. But they've exceeded those expectations tremendously. They're on the path to have a historic expansion season in many ways. They've broken a lot of records, and they're continuing to do so. But it's just something about the system that Mikey Vargas wanted to put out there, and the players being able to buy in. Like you said, Dreyer has, if Messi wasn't in the league, probably be the MVP of the league this year, without a doubt. Chucky Lozano is living up to the billing there. And like we mentioned, there's just players that are falling in line everywhere across the board for them, that it's consistent enough, right? I still don't think that when you look at them against certain teams, they're gonna be undermatched, right, in certain aspects, because the way that some of these teams are stacked now. If you talk about LAFC or certain teams in the West, the Sounders per se. But this is a team that I think on their day could go and give anybody a fight. They're going to make it interesting. They're going to play a game that's going to make you work for it, right? They're not going to go against any team. I think they've made their laps around the league and said, you know what, we're not going to conform to hey, we're just the expansion team. We're just here. No, they're here to set a tone. And it's a team that has been playing well at home too, which is a big deal in MLS. They had a stretch where they lost a few consecutive games there, but you know how big it is to win home games here. And listen, man, you get that San Diego stadium full for a playoff game or series, 30,000 people in that building, like that's different energy, right? That's to the level of like what Columbus was able to do when they won MLS Cup and things of that nature, because you're packing, you're fitting some more fans in there than these other stadiums. So I'm a fan of what San Diego's been able to do, and I know people are kind of like, maybe they'll fall off a little bit, but ride the wave, right? They're up there, like, why not push it all the way through and see what happens in the playoffs? What do you think about them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the reason I kind of give LAFC and Seattle that edge is just experience when it comes to the playoffs. But I think that San Diego are going to finish top of the West in the regular season. I don't think we're going to see a fall off at the back end here. And I think, as you say, it's Anders Dreyer for the most part. I mean, this guy is unbelievable. Nobody, I don't think anybody predicted how good he was going to be. I mean, this guy doesn't have to play another minute. He's already the newcomer of the year. And he just this weekend passed up Carlos Vela for the most goal contributions in a debut season, in an expansion season, for San Diego's fifth straight road victory. You were talking about home victories. They're doing it on the road too. First expansion team ever to do 5 in a row on the road. It's incredible. Yeah, Lozano's living up to the billing. De La Torre, when he's fit, is up to the billing. But it's people who are doing a lot more. Valakari, incredible. We mentioned Iloski. That is a bad move, but he produced when he was in San Diego. Go Bruins, by the way. And Yep, Tverskov, I just think has been so key. To me, I often focus on these defensive midfielders. Last year it was a McAnally. This year it's Yep Tverskov, who I just don't think get enough praise league wide because of the position that they play, but they are so key. Anelli last year and Tverskov this year, just to the way that they play. I don't know the exact stats right now, but at one point he was top of the league in touches, top of the league in passes. He's so key. Everything flows through him. He is the metronome there in San Diego, and they've been better defensively than I think anybody would have expected as well. They don't really have big names, but they get it done. Luca Bombino in from LAFC. McVeigh is kind of their main guy, but and he's been over expectations. Dua's come in, played well. There's a lot, Dos Santos has been pretty good in my opinion too. There's just a lot that's going right in San Diego. But yeah, when it comes to the playoffs, I would say that experience maybe is their biggest challenge. And if they can overcome that, they're definitely a contender for sure.
And I talked about this game earlier, but circle it on your calendar. San Diego FC is coming to LA to play LAFC the end of this month. That game will tell us a lot, right? That game is now closer to the playoffs, where you have a team that's defined in San Diego FC, and you have a team that just got this big name player and is kind of looking to make that last push in LAFC. We like to say this in the media, maybe it's hyperbole, but that's going to tell us a lot about both sides in terms of what we have going into the playoff stretch. And if San Diego's real and comes to LA and wins that game on that stage, knowing that his son's first game in LA and all the things that are going to be surrounding it, then, you know, people have to start respecting them a little more than they probably already are. And that's a team that that is going to be fun. And you know what? The Galaxy ain't going to be in the playoffs. So give us a San Diego, LA playoff series. Why not? Let's get it. Let's ask the soccer gods for everything today. I hope they're listening, man.
I'm down. I'm down for it, man. That would be really fun. I agree with you, man. I've been so excited for this San Diego LAFC game, Sun debut. It's the first time that these two are playing at BMO Stadium. It's going to be fantastic. And San Diego won that thriller in San Diego the first time. You know, LAFC are going to want to get back.
Yeah, it'll be Sun's first game in LA. And breaking news, I will be back in the press box because I know I haven't been there in a long time. So if you're watching on YouTube, you see I'm wearing the classy Sounders kit, my number one kit of the season. I have to mention them because it's just Sounders time, right? It's late August or mid-August, going into late August, going into September, and here come the Sounders again, doing what they do every single year under Brian Schmetzer, putting their foot on the gas and somehow just climbing the standings. It's incredible. And it's one of those things where I think Brian Schmetzer might get overlooked in larger picture, but it's like, it's really plug and play over there, man. Like, you could just start naming people and you're like, oh yeah, this guy's there. And like, they're getting contributions from everybody, from homegrown players, from Musowski, like from the people that they're used to having there. Like, it's just so much going on in Seattle. Is there anything else to say besides just watch out for the Sounders because they're going to be there?
No, you're absolutely right. It's just that they do it every year, and that's why it's like some people might think I'm overstating experience and the role that plays, but just look at the Sounders, and that's all you need to say. They do it every single year. It's the most predictable. I mean, we talk about how unpredictable this league is. That is the most predictable piece of this league every single year. Is the Seattle Sounders are going to make a run at the end of the season to make sure they're in a top 4 seed every single year. It's just going to happen. And like you say, it's plug and play. And I'll shout out Ari Lindenwald, who made a great point on Loving Scorchers, is rolled on. Either rolled on. You plug them in wherever they want to go, whether it's goalkeeper or winger, wherever, they'll get the job done.
It's incredible, man. You got to give the Sounders a lot of credit, man. They just do it every season. And it might not be the prettiest sometimes, but listen, results breed success. And that's what it is. They probably don't want to see LAFC in the playoffs again because that's a team that they've had trouble with, but listen, they'll be ready to go if they have to.
Or vice versa.
Yeah, or exactly. It's so funny because I remember at All-Star, now that we're talking about this, somebody had asked Denny Bouanga about playing the Whitecaps, and he was just like, enough is enough. And now I'm like, that would be a fun playoff series. Now to come to think about it, Bouanga's probably like, I've seen enough of his team. Like, they play their Philly, they play them every other week. But is there anybody else in MLS that you feel like should get an honorable mention in this segment before we shift over to Leagues Cup and talk about what's happening in that tournament, what's still to come?
It's hard because the East is so good, but I will shout out Charlotte FC because I have been high on Charlotte since preseason. I just think that I've always been high on Dean Smith. I think that he builds a really strong team just structurally, and the key piece to me preseason was if Pep Biel can have that breakout season that Crown fans wanted him to have, then they'll be competitive. And he has been at a near MVP clip. And so I think maybe Zaha hasn't been quite as good as I would have expected, but he's still been very good. They sold Ajimong, but Toklamati has come in and done just as well. There's a lot going well. They just brought in another fullback in Harry Toffolo from a Premier League team. So they're improving that defense a little bit, which I think is necessary, especially in that fullback position. So I love Ashley Westwood. I think he's a great leader, a great captain, and good in that 8 spot up and down the field. So I just like a lot of what Charlotte can do, and I feel like they're a team built for a playoff run. They remind me of just they're going to be solid. They're going to have Pep Biel or Zaha hit you and beat you 1-0, something like that. That's the kind of vibes that Charlotte gives me. They always have under Dean Smith, and I just never know. The East is so tough, but if I had a dark horse in either league, in either side conference, it would be them.
It's a good shout. I think Wilfred Zaha is finally starting to settle in and get a little more comfortable. You saw he scored a nice goal to beat Cincinnati, which is a big win for a lot of reasons in the Eastern standings. But and he said it after the game. He's like, it takes some time to get used to. Some people are able to come in here and do it right away. Some people are not. I think it's a goal contribution in 9 straight for him, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh.
5 straight MLS wins for Charlotte. Like, this is a team that probably flies under the radar for a lot of people, but is definitely a worthy opponent when you talk about that mixture of Eastern Conference teams. And not to beat the same point home, but if you get a playoff game and a home field advantage in that stadium in Charlotte, that could be enough to push you over the edge against a team like Inter Miami or something like that. Because that building, when the fans get in there and it goes crazy, man, it jumps like no other in MLS, and they have the capacity to fill it because it is obviously a football stadium. So there's a lot going well for Charlotte. I definitely agree with that. I think last season, if I'm not mistaken, I also said the same thing going into the playoffs, like watch out for them, because it seems like they're always kind of on that edge of like they could make a run. But with somebody like Wilfried Zaha, if he's scoring and he's contributing the way he has been in these past games, that's a dangerous team to watch for sure. So I 100% agree with that. And I do have to give a shout out, of course, to the New England Revolution. Matt Turner is back. Talking about names coming into MLS, Matt Turner is back and gets a shutout in his first game back. Things aren't per se great in New England, but having Matt Turner back and hearing him say that he's back to really just prove a point and get that starting goalkeeper position back for the U.S. national team with the World Cup coming up is a big deal. Obviously, he loves New England. New England loves him. It's good to see. And I will say this, and I feel like I've probably said this many times in this podcast. If Carlos Hill played on another team, we talk about him the same way we talk about Evander. But because he plays for the Revs, a lot of people don't probably watch him. But he is a sensational player, scored an amazing goal this past weekend, and he just continues to be so good. And he's been doing it for years in MLS. So shout out to Matt Turner and Carlos Hill in particular, but shout out to the Revs, of course. Always.
No, absolutely. Carlos Hill passed Taylor Schwalman for the most goal contributions in Revolution history this weekend. He is, former MVP. Rate him as highly as you want. He deserves it.
Yeah.
And yeah, as you say, Matt Turner back in the league. I should have mentioned Christian Kalina reigning MLS goalkeeper of the year with Charlotte, but also Matt Turner, I think, is great to have back in the league because now you have basically all of the USMNT goalkeepers playing in the same league. They're playing week in and week out heading into that World Cup. Whether you would rather have them playing in Europe, you can decide. But to me, at least they're all on the same level. They're all playing week in and week out, and you can look and test them against each other and see who's playing the best, who's in the best form heading into that. And for Pochettino, I think that's positive.
That's a great point. And Turner said it himself. He was doing an interview on Apple TV, and he said, he's had many conversations with Pochettino, and he helped him get confidence. He's like, sometimes you're just in a moment and you need somebody to help you gain some confidence and kind of approach things in a different way. And he said that's what Pochettino has been able to do for him already in the limited amount of time they've been together. So it's a big deal for having him and trying to push for that spot for the World Cup.
And I think that New England does that for him as well. I mean, it's been a little bit of chaos for him in Europe with Forest. He barely played. Then he went to Lyon. He didn't play at all. And they just, want to get him off the books, basically. And New England is somewhere that's familiar to him. It's a safe space for him. He can just focus on ball. And I think that's exactly what he needs.
Listen, man, a lot of teams get into the playoffs in MLS. It's still a far way for New England to go. But they play LAFC this weekend coming up. If they find a way to get a result against LAFC in Foxborough, I'm going to have to start having some conversations with people. Non-biasedly, of course. You know what I mean?
Of course. No bias.
But all right, let's shift over to Leagues Cup, man. It's been an eventful tournament, of course. It always is because it's just right thrown in the middle of the season. Like, here you go, have that. Like I mentioned, Justin has been all around it. He's been working around the clock. I've been working around the clock. We'll put up the graphic here. We're down to the quarterfinal, the last teams. We have Toluca and Orlando City. Just a beautiful matchup. We have Inter Miami Tigres, which is a reunion of World Cup champions down in South Florida. The Sounders, on the other side is the Sounders against Puebla, and then Pachuca against the mighty Los Angeles Galaxy, who somehow, some way found a way to get to the quarterfinals. Let's quickly talk about Leagues Cup, the new format, how it's only 8 teams that made it, good or bad. What are your just overarching thoughts on the tournament before we get into these quarterfinal matchups?
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting format in the sense that you're competing against teams that you're not playing, right? That you're in a table and you're not playing any of the teams within your table. And so I think that causes a little bit of a problem in the sense of you have Portland who win 2 games, draw with Club America and lose in penalties, and they go out at the group stage. That seems a little bit harsh to me. But I love the idea of the MLS versus Liga MX games in the way that they set them up, and to ensure that every game is these rivalry games. I think it made it more fun. I think it led to a lot of drama in these games. Most of them, 90% of the games, were really entertaining watches, even if they were some rotated players or whatever, what have you. They were very, very entertaining, with a lot of drama, a lot of goals, a lot of chaos. It was really a fun group stage, I think, phase one, as they call it. But I thought it was really, entertaining. They had, a ton of great goals as well. When Brian Rodriguez scored that incredible free kick against Real Salt Lake right into that top corner, I tweeted, "Good luck topping this for Leagues Cup goal of the tournament." And then Pedro de la Vega topped it. Paulinho topped. Like, they just kept topping it. I was like, whoa. I mean, de la Vega's certainly the best of the lot, but there was 5 goals probably that would win a normal goal of the tournament just in this phase one. So been fantastic. Absolutely. The chaos of Cruz Azul getting smacked 7-0 by Seattle. Just craziness, just so much fun. The format's a little weird, but it worked out in the sense that it was really entertaining.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it definitely, the competition level was up in a lot of games. And then you got to see these incredible goals from these players. Like the Paulinho bicycle kick, to me, is I watch it over and over. I'm like, he was surrounded by like 3 or 4 defenders. He just somehow was like, I'm just gonna try a bicycle kick right here, and just smashes it. The De La Vega goal is probably something that he'll never, or anybody will ever be able to try to hit. If they tried it, they wouldn't successfully pull it off. And the Brian Rodriguez goal, like you mentioned, was just absolute stunner. But you saw a lot of quality in that phase one. I do agree with the format being weird, and I think if you push it to maybe 6 teams on each side, then you're talking a little different, right? Because I think Portland is hard done there. I know Columbus Crew was kind of in the mix for a little bit, watching and seeing, but there were certain teams on the Mexican side, like Juarez, that was fighting. It was incredible to see. Like, we thought that everybody's like, oh yeah, Monterrey and the big teams are like, now they're out of here. Cruz Azul, now they're out of here. Like, it's a very interesting format for the Liga MX side, of course, because they're playing all these road games, and well, let's say road games, but they probably have more fans than the local teams. But it is for what they're doing with Leagues Cup. I like it because it did raise the intensity of those games a bit, because there was just, and then of course on the other side there was some phase one games that didn't matter because teams might have been eliminated already for that third match. So it's an imperfect science. It doesn't matter. It's going to change again because it always does. So get used to it. But we're down to the final 8 teams, and it's funny because you have 3 teams that we just talked about in MLS with Miami, Orlando, and Seattle, who are at top levels in the league, and then we have the Galaxy, who are at the bottom level in the league, but they just won MLS Cup last year. We know the story there, and somehow they managed to find their way into this quarterfinal. And listen, man, like, they probably, I don't know, it's weird because you watch them in MLS and they look so lifeless, but they're probably like, hey, we're a few games away from salvaging something, right? And that could mean something. So from those 4 ties, what do you see? Like, what do you see in terms of it? Will it be MLS teams against each other? Or are the Galaxy going to flame out? Is Inter Miami going to make a run at that cup again? What do you see from the quarterfinals there?
Yeah, I think those 2 games on the left side of the bracket are the 2 best games: Toluca versus Orlando, Miami versus Tigres. I think if Messi's there, you give Miami the advantage. If not, maybe Tigres. Up top, you give Toluca the advantage, but Orlando could certainly beat them on any given day, right? So I think that it's just great matchups. I mean, you couldn't ask for much more than those matchups. As you say, they're teams competing at the top of their leagues. Seattle, you probably expect to get past Puebla, but Pachuca, you probably expect to beat Galaxy on a normal day. But as you say, it's what I wanted Galaxy to do from the beginning. They're not playing great in the league. Forgo the league. You're not making playoffs. We all know that. Focus on Leagues Cup. This is a trophy where you can put 100% of your best foot forward, where other teams may need to rotate a little bit more than you do. And you can use that to your advantage. I think that's fantastic. I think they've done so. Also, Mauricio Cuevas has been unbelievable in this tournament. If you're watching as an international, I think that Leagues Cup is something that probably more international teams watch scouting wise. You're probably looking at Mauricio Cuevas and thinking about putting in a bid there. But yeah, I think that these are some good matchups. But those are kind of the picks that I would go. What do you think? Who do you think's getting through?
Yeah, I think that you mentioned the left side is very strong because we do have the possibility of getting that Florida rivalry again in a semifinal, which is boosted at a different level. And then we're gonna get an MLS Cup playoffs because we just asked for it so nicely. But I do think that Toluca gets past Orlando. But listen, man, from what I saw in that Miami game, I think Orlando is gonna have a motive, right? They're gonna have just energy behind them of like, hey, man, we're kind of getting to this next level, and they know like they need to keep producing at a high level and make that next step, right? And that's winning trophies, that's getting far in these tournaments. That game is in here in Carson, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so they have to. They're traveling across the country for that game. Not going to have an advantage in terms of fans in the stands, but listen, man, it's not impossible for them to be able to knock Toluca down. I think Toluca has just been very strong coming off of winning a Liga MX. They're just there, and they've been running through Leagues Cup and showing that that level that they have, and they haven't really. They maybe in the beginning they got off to a little bit of a slow start, but I think since then they've put their foot on the gas and they're able to show that that's a quality team. The Miami match for me is like I want to say I'm going to give Miami the edge, but it's just something about that team to me is still just not. It doesn't fully convince me, and I think it's just still the defensive and the defensive end and goalkeeping because moving forward, and it's funny to say that because you talk about a game like they just had against Orlando where like sure they weren't great defensively, but they were awful on offense too. Like nobody talks about the fact that their attack was just basically non-existent. Granted, that has to do with Orlando being able to dominate and control the game, but like it's like okay, Messi's not here. What the hell are we going to do on offense? And it's like you don't get much from that. So when you go head up with a team like Tigres, who is tested, who has been in these big stages, who has quality around the roster as well, you're gonna have to play your best game. This is not going to be LAFC and CONCACAF Champions Cup or whatever the case may be. Like it's not just another MLS team. Like, this is a top quality Liga MX team who also now is coming in. Like first of all, MLS is the little brother. That's their mentality always. But now it's like, oh, this is Messi's team. Like okay, cool. Let's go see what we could do. So that game to me is going to be a lot of fun. Let's hope that Messi is back on the field, and we know if he is, and that does give him a lot of an advantage in many places. But I still think for some reason Tigres gets by that one, and I agree with you. Damn, I'm just saying Liga MX sweep now that I realize it. On the other side, I agree with you. Oh no, wait, Seattle. Sorry, Sounders. How could I do that? I'm wearing your jersey. The Sounders will win their game, and then I think the Galaxy. Thanks for coming, and we appreciate your input. Shout out to Mauricio Cuevas, who's been great. But listen, man, this is the fun about it because the fact that it's the leagues against each other, and maybe besides the Galaxy now, you have I think a great representation of MLS in these final teams, right? You have, and they're the defending champs, so you have to give them that at least, right? They just won a trophy not too long ago, but you have a very very high representation of like if you're the Sounders, if you're Orlando City, like you're all in, right? Like you're not necessarily looking at this at a different way. You're like we got to be all in and on this stage, and then Miami is Miami, like they have no other cards to play besides the ones they have on the field, so they're playing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you brought it up when it came to the MLS playoffs. I'll bring it up now. If Galaxy fans want one thing to hold on to, it's that they get home field throughout this tournament as the MLS Cup reigning champions. So they can use that Dignity Health Sports Park, hopefully, to their advantage throughout this tournament. I was talking to Maya Yoshida. He said, we tasted that last year. I'm addicted to winning. I want to get back there. A couple other players said, same thing. We felt it last year. We know what that home field advantage can do for us if we use it to our advantage. Well, let's see if they can do it again.
I wonder how, like, it's such a weird dynamic for that fan base right now too, because I wonder how excited the fans are. Like, I get it 100%, and I think the players saying that it makes a lot of sense because we saw how important it was in their cup run last season. But like, if you're a fan and you're like, okay, this team sucks this year, we're not doing anything in the league, but this is a quarterfinal. Like, are they going to go spend their money to go support and really show out for that game? Or are fans kind of just like, because of the whole, kind of boycott against AEG or whatever? It's a very interesting time for Galaxy fans, but I feel like we say that every season at the same time. So who knows what that does look like? But you're right, that could 100% be a big factor in pushing them through. And let's not gloss over, like, it's a talented roster. They just haven't been playing at the level that they were playing last season. But when you talk about the players, same form, same format rather, same team. They're just not producing at the level that they did last year. But that doesn't mean that players like Painstill and Peck, and you have Marco Royce, you have everybody that's still there can't all of a sudden, say what, we're here, 3 games, we could do something here. Let's turn up. It's not impossible, man. It's not impossible.
And if you reach that final, Ricky Puig is on the Leagues Cup roster. He's there.
He's if it was up to him, he'd probably play if he could. Like
he's been teasing it on Instagram already. Don't worry, he's ready to go.
He's ready. Listen, man, crazier things have happened. The ghost of Zlatan is still somewhere in Carson floating around. Crazier things have happened. But Justin, man, this has been great. We touched on a lot of different things in MLS, and exactly what I wanted to do. Kicking the Real is back. Please follow Justin on all platforms. Shout out to Upper 90. Check him out as well there. Continue to do great work as always, brother. And we'll see each other at a press box very soon once I finish unpacking the rest of these boxes here in my new apartment.
Absolutely, man. I'm glad we get you back in the press box sitting right next to me at BMO. We need that. Thank you for having me on. I feel honored to be the first 2-time guest of Kicking It Real. If y'all are still here, y'all better hit that like and subscribe button. The best podcast right now on YouTube. Let's get it.
Yeah, tell your friends. And we'll be back soon, man. We'll do it again very, very soon. When you're the first third-time guest, then, we're just going to keep rolling. We're going to keep letting the accolades continue. And, football season is around the corner, so we're going to be at that too. We'll be having some people out here to talk some football. We're going to be doing everything we want. Trust me. I'll make sure I get the scarves back and everything going. But until the next time, much love. Peace.